Welcome to the Celebrate Brave podcast. I'm Nicole Church-Steinbach, your host and the International Bravery Coach for Women in Tech. I serve women all over the world to earn more money, create more opportunities, and thrive in the tech industry because tech needs all of us. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, brave people. Today is going to be a short one. It's all about choosing how you show up. I'm making this podcast episode because in recent consultations with potential clients, as well as in 2 major speaking engagements I had, so often this idea of everything's out of control. I don't control anything. I can do this and I can do that. And they're doing this and this is happening to me. And And first I'm going to say, yes, I have these feelings too. Of course I do. It is a crazy time. And the truth is that it's always a crazy time. The majority of what we experience, our relationships, our professions, our finances, etc., can feel so out of our control and it can spin us out. Yeah, totally. And I've mentioned on this podcast in a couple of different places a technique that I use called the model. And in every interview, at some point, we get to the point either directly or indirectly about the fact, and it is truly a fact, that we choose how we show up. And so in these conversations, in these consultations, in the Q&A after speaking engagement, in my own life, I have been sharing the same technique over and over again, and I thought it's time to share it on the podcast. The tip and technique requires a piece of paper and a pen, or a whiteboard and a whiteboard marker, or any other combination that permits you to do this exercise. You don't do it in your head. You do it with your hand and you create a visualization. Okay? If you're one of those people who uses an electronic pen, yeah, that totally counts. What's important is that you have a visualization after this exercise. All right. So you've got your piece of paper and you've got your pen. And in the center of that paper, you're going to draw a circle about the size of your fist. And it's a closed circle. Okay. So you draw a circle and it's about the size of your fist in the middle of the piece of paper. And you close the circle. So it's a full line. This, dear listener, amazing human that you are, this is your circle of control. These are the things that you control. Things like the quality of coffee I drink, the amount of sleep that I get, if I sign up for a half marathon or not, when I record podcast episodes, my attitude, showing up on time, who I spend time with. These are the things I control. What do you control? Okay, then around your circle of control, still sort of in the center of the paper, but about, a finger length away from your circle of control, you're going to draw another closed circle. So you've got your fist-sized circle of control in the center of your paper, closed line. And now you've got slightly outside of that, another closed circle that is your circle of influence. These are the things that you influence. So, for example, I can influence when my children go into their bedrooms to lay down. I can influence my clients and the exercises and the experiences and the knowledge and mindset they're exposed to. We influence the agenda of meetings we show up to. We influence how other people reflect with us, how they act with us. We influence it by what we accept, by what we don't accept, and by living in the spaces we control and the aspects of our lives that we control to the best of our ability for how we choose to show up. We influence other people. We influence processes. We influence political situations. We influence a lot, and we control very little. Okay, so we've got the circle of control. We've got the circle of influence. Both of these are closed circles. And now outside of that, you still have paper. No more circles. These are the areas of your concern. These are things like how other people actually choose to behave, the operational processes at the corporation that you work in, the hiring practices of the entire tech industry, the investment realities across the entire world. If and how democratic or revolutions, civil war, etc., is taking place in other places of the world. This is everything that concerns you. The tax code, right? The tax code of wherever you live. These are all these things that concern you, that are areas of concern that you do not influence and that you do not control. So let's take something massive and then we're going to bring it back to our professions in tech. What do I control? I control my attitude about climate change. I control how much plastic I buy, how much I choose to put into the recycling process. What do I influence? Climate change, let's stay with plastic. I influence how my family does that. I influence my friends by talking about climate change. I'm influencing you right now by talking about climate change as a fact, as a reality, and the reality and the fact that plastic plays a huge role in climate change. The concern. It does concern me that the vast majority of plastics actually cannot be recycled. It concerns me that the recycling processes around the world are very inefficient. That concerns me. Influence? No. Control? Absolutely not. Now, could I pull that concern into influence by becoming politically active to change any of those aspects that concern me? Yeah, I could. Am I doing that? No, I am not, because I know this tip, the circles of control. Let's take it to our professions. Control. I show up. I control how I show up. I control when I show up, and I control the quality and the value of the impact I make in showing up as a woman in technology. Influence. I influence others by communicating my value, communicating my impact, and showing up in the wholeness of who I am, how I dress, how I speak. I show people, I influence them to expand their idea of what a technologist or what someone in the technology industry can look like and sound like and do. I influence that. I can also, for example, if you have a full-time job, I can control where I work. I can control my salary that I'm willing to accept. And then when it goes into promotions and raises, I can influence that. I can influence if the promotion happens. Check out my podcast, How to Make Your Next Promotion Inevitable. I can influence the size of the raise. And at the end of the day, it's someone else's decision. At the end of the day, if you work at a massive corporation or even a small corporation, a startup. And then it can go back into control when you say yes or no. So if you get a promotion and you say yes, or if you don't, or if you get a raise that you feel is unacceptable, you can go change where you work. That's in your circle of control. But the final decision for the promotion and the raise is not. That's in your area of influence. And concern in this situation is, for the most part, you're interested in the strategy of the company, but you don't influence it in your job. Maybe you do, but let's just pretend your role is not strategic. For example, the strategy of the place that you work. If you're in a global strategy role, you definitely influence this. If you are in an executive C-level role, then you definitely control this. For the vast majority of people who are listening to this is a concern of yours. Perhaps you work at a place, and I certainly hope that you do because it's sort of the baseline, that asks for you to influence the strategy, then you can influence it. The majority of the time, it's a concern. Do you see how this works? Your circle of control is how you choose to show up, what you say yes and what you say no to, what you accept and what you reject, how you think, how you behave. Influence are all of those areas that you can help with, you can support, you can inspire, you can stretch other people's ideas, but you don't control them. There's way more in your circle of influence than in your circle of control. And concern, honestly, is probably 90% of what is making you crazy and making you unhappy and setting off all these emotional firestorms and sucking your energy. That's why I get so many questions about this in my consultations. And that's why when I speak publicly about bravery, the majority of questions are about things that you don't control. You probably don't influence the vast majority of the time. But where are you spending most of your energy? In concern. Stop it. Stop it. Do this exercise. Create the visual representation and then take action of what you control. Very specifically, and this is a client story. A client came to me and felt super disempowered and angry and rejected. And it was a very painful time. It was real pain because where she was working, the strategy had changed through an acquisition. And this was not in line with her values anymore. And she was spending 70%, I'm going to guess, 70% of her energy, her conversations at work, her time outside of work and talking to people about what was going on, pissed off about this major strategic change that she could neither influence, not regularly, not powerfully, and she certainly couldn't control. In working together, she slowly acknowledged that's a concern. That strategic change, that acquisition, that's a concern. She played around with attempting to influence it and realized you can influence as much as you want, but if it doesn't get picked up by the other side, you are wasting your energy. And then she powerfully moved into her control circle, powerfully looked at how am I showing up? How am I behaving? Why am I in this situation? What is my mindset? What are my beliefs? What am I doing? And what results do I want? And then she completely changed. Her career took off. Within a few months, she was getting offered amazing project potential, stretch roles, all of these things. And she still said, thank you. Thank you for the trust. I appreciate it. And moved into a working situation where the strategy reflected her values and the impact that she wanted to make in the world. This is the power of this exercise, the circles of control. When you give yourself just 10 minutes to create this visual representation, I promise you, I promise you that clarity is going to support you in really enjoying where you're going in the long term. So there we go. A quick, simple trick that's going to support you as you build your brave. Till next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Celebrate Brave podcast. If you're ready to build your brave, to live a life you love, and create a career that matters to you, reach out. Together, we can spend time one-on-one to explore how I can help you. And until then, share this episode with people in your life, people who can join our movement to redefine brave, how we identify it, experience it, and celebrate it.